Hey, what is going on, guys? My name is Cal. Welcome back with the 3.17 Siege of the Atlas expansion just right around the corner. I thought I would bring you my personal top 5 league starters for this coming expansion. Now, again, this is a personal opinion, but every single build that I have being showcased here are essentially new player friendly, very cheap to start, and can be scaled into serious endgame investment if you would like to go that route. They also come with the option of being respect. For example, if you play one of the builds in this top 5 list, it's a necromancer. If you choose that you just really don't want to play a necro anymore, you are free to respec it into potentially an occultist, or maybe you want to be able to self-cast if that turns out to be really strong. There's a lot of options here so that you don't really necessarily have to re-level a fresh character in the story mode, because we all know everyone hates the story mode in Path of Exile. So all of these creators that have build guides on their channels, I will have linked in the description, so feel free to check them out. They're doing amazing content when it comes to being detail oriented and providing a lot of explanations for choices that they make. Every single POB that's going to be included for these builds, they all come with budget friendly options and different gear sets and leveling guides so that you can easily get through the story mode. These guides are very thorough, and the builds that are being showcased here are going to be focused on melee and ranged and summoner style playstyles. So that way you have options available no matter what type of player you are. I know that not everyone necessarily wants to play the exact same build, and options are always nice to have. So without further ado, let's get into the top 5 league starters for 3.17 expansion. Coming in at number 5, we've got a Cyclone Slayer from Navandis. It is actually nice to see someone showing some love to this build on YouTube, because Cyclone used to be one of the most popular skills in Path of Exile history. It is a very comfortable mapper and has incredible boss damage if you continue to invest in it and want to scale up the damage. It has really good clear speed. It's very nice because you don't have to worry about reflected damage. You have insane amounts of leech. The biggest pro of going Slayer is that you have an Ascendancy notable that gives you 20% Culling Strike on enemies, which is really amazing for bosses, because some bosses can really ramp up as they start to go into their final phases, and you can just automatically cull them at 20% health. There are some cons, I could say, for a build like this, but overall, the Culling Strike, the strong single target, and the one button type of playstyle are really huge pros. The types of cons that I think would maybe deter some players from wanting to play this build is that early on, especially when your investment is lower and you're looking for those kinds of upgrades, you will be required to play a bit more of the boss's mechanics, and some people don't like being in that melee range up close with the boss. But thankfully, Cyclone is a movement skill, so you can constantly reposition, as you can see in the gameplay in the background. There's always going to be projectiles coming at you that you can kind of move out of the way of. You don't have to essentially stop and attack. It's a free form kind of flowing playstyle, and that's really just one of the biggest things about it. I know a lot of new players are not really looking for too many buttons to press, and they just maybe want something a little bit simpler. This is a really nice build, and it can be scaled to insane amounts of currency and investment, where your damage is just going to be ridiculous in the end game. It's able to take down all the major bosses in the game prior to these new bosses, of course, because we don't know. But with this type of investment, or with a good amount of investment, I imagine those bosses will naturally be a walk in the park as well. Coming in at number 4, we've got a Righteous Fire Inquisitor by Pox. He is a big fan of Righteous Fire, and he plays this build and variations of it consistently in almost every league, it feels like, and he pushes this character into the high 90s every single time. I actually saw that he was playing this last league, and I decided to try out Righteous Fire and do heist with it. So this is a build that basically is not an amazing boss killer, but I would say if you're looking to do things like delve, comfortable mapping, heist content, this is the build for you. It's a very stress-free, low kind of focus required playstyle, you can comfortably just shield charge around and burn enemies with your AoE of fire. It's an incredible build to play. It really, really feels comfortable, and it just has that new player friendly vibe to it. Now, Pox has created an amazing leveling guide that has details on how to craft all of the items needed for this build and when you should get upgrades, different leveling trees, and things of that nature. So this is an amazing build if you're really looking for some casual, low investment kind of mapping. It's really, really comfortable, and you really can't go wrong with a build like this. Just remember that this is not going to be a build that you're going to really want to do a lot of bosses with, like the Feared and Maven, for example. Maven is doable on this build, but it requires perfect mechanical execution. If you do happen to get touched by her rotating beam in phase 3, the build is pretty much over. You will have to log out or you will die almost immediately. So just be warned about things like that. It is very new player friendly and it's very comfortable, and you can easily craft a lot of the items yourself on a budget. So feel free to take a look at his stuff if you're curious about Righteous Fire. It can also be scaled really, really well with AoE explosions like he's doing in the gameplay in the background through Astronaut's Gentle Touch, and it's all around an impressive build. Now coming in at number 3, we have two Necromancer builds in a sort of tie. We have Skeleton Mages by Von Victon, and we have Absolution by the British Exile. Now both builds are very, very strong, can be scaled with insane amounts of investment, and actually use a lot of the same style of items, with the exception of the body armor and the mages having a specific jewel. Now, the gameplay that you're seeing in the background from Von Victon is Skeleton Mages, of course, and this is utilizing the jewel that I mentioned just now. It's called Dead Reckoning. Now, this jewel at the beginning of a league, especially the first day or two, can be quite expensive. Now, it's still achievable if you're efficient enough with farming Chaos Recipe, or maybe you happen to get some really good drops. RNG is always inconsistent in that way. But if it's something that you believe that you just really can't afford, then Absolution probably would be a better choice if you're dead set on starting Skeleton Mages with it looking like the gameplay in the background. You can play this build with melee skeletons until you're able to afford the Dead Reckoning Cobalt Jewels. So just a little warning on that before you kind of commit to this build. It's not going to look like that initially. You do need this jewel for it to operate, but outside of that, everything else is pretty much budget friendly when it comes to rare items. Now, Absolution, on the other hand, doesn't really require any unique items initially, but it does require them as you continue to invest into the build. So Absolution is getting a buff this league, which is going to make it even more viable. It's probably going to be worth league starting this even if you really want to transition into Skeleton Mages. You play this first, and then you transition afterwards into Mages. But all in all, both builds can be scaled a lot, have incredible mapping potential with insane boss damage. At number 2, we've got the Perfect Agony Spectral Helix build by Jun Groan. Now, this build utilizes some very interesting tactics, and being combined together, they just achieve insane amounts of damage. If you just want a build that has basically no investment and can just do a lot of damage, this is the build for you. This build really only requires like 2 unique items, and they're very, very common. There's no way that you're going to pay anything more than like 2 to 3 chaos for these uniques, and that's probably me being generous. This build essentially takes Perfect Agony, Nightblade support, and the ability to scale your elusive effect and it just deals a shit ton of damage. This is the build for you if you're really just looking for that super low investment build that you're going to play for maybe 2 days before you reroll, or 3 days, whatever the case may be, and it just has insane, insane amounts of damage. Unbelievable build. And lastly, at number 1, we've got Explosive Arrow by ZyTV in collaboration with Zizarin. The video's up on his channel. There are 2 versions of this build that you can actually play, and this build actually achieves over 23 million DPS, which I could not believe in the endgame gear setup, and there was only one influenced item that was actually present on that overall gear setup as far as I can remember. Maybe I'm wrong, but if I am, I'll just throw a note up on screen. But this build is incredible. It is a totem playstyle, and that could be one con that maybe you're just not a big fan of. But if you're looking for something that really can almost guarantee that you're going to progress very far into the end game, then this build is for you. Has incredible clear speed, and insane amounts of single target damage. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Leave a like on the video and leave a comment if you're going to be league starting one of these. My name is Cal, and I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you guys enjoy patch 3.17. There are tons of viable builds out there. This top 5 is just a personal list of mine, and there are so many other builds that you could potentially play that are going to have a lot of promise, and hidden builds that are going to no doubt pop up as we go further into the league. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.